you, and seeing how that is impacting those individuals' personal health and their families has been really life-changing for some of these guys.
Now, as a congresswoman, what other bottlenecks are you seeing that you see in the system that you would like to change or fix?
Civil liberties is one that I have and continue to be focused on, in an area where there is bipartisan support. When you look at a lot of the abuses that we have seen and continue to see in agencies like the NSA and in the post-Patriot Act world, where laws were passed licensing warrantless spying on Americans.
So Kentucky's Mitch McConnell, the senator who's been senator for 50,000 years, so he says that the election day being a holiday is bullshit. He says it's a vast left-wing conspiracy. Kentucky's Mitch has done so much damage to this country, it's not even funny, and he's suppressed the vote, is one of the biggest things ever. Kentucky will see a 13% turnout rate in their primaries and their governor's race because democracy just doesn't matter to Mitch McConnell. So to say that election day, all election days should be holidays, this is a democracy. Do we not celebrate democracy? Are we not spreading democracy to Venezuela? And yet 13% is the turnout rate in Kentucky? 13%. So, and to say that it's a vast left-wing conspiracy, heck, that makes me think maybe it ought to be. Election day should be a holiday, you stupid motherfucker. Of course it should be. People, working-class people, need to have the day off so they can go vote. At least have a day to talk about voting. In Colorado, you got a month because they have mail-in ballots. So you get to look at it for a month before you get to decide. But in Kentucky, you got to show up on election day, and you got to be ready. You got to have, studied it all your own and figured it all yourself, figured out yourself.
Like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Army of Islam, and others who are all seeking to overthrow the government and establish their own caliphate. Now, does that serve the interests of the United States? Is that the mission that we should be pursuing? The weaker the Syrian government and military are, the more dependent they will be on assistance from Russia and Iran, thereby strengthening their position and power in Syria. Is that our mission?
This is about Kamala Harris, okay? So Kamala Harris. Let's talk about some of the good things, okay? So she's an accomplished woman. She defended AOC being a socialist because she said as a teacher she likes a diversity of views. On The View, Meghan McCain tried to railroad her with a bunch of anti-socialist questions, so she defended AOC. She also didn't give the death penalty for some guy who shot and killed an undercover. So a lot of people are screaming for the death penalty. I've heard that she's switched on the death penalty, but when she began, she did stand up for one guy who shot and killed an undercover, and people were calling for his head, and she defended him. Kamala Harris represents California, so 1/4 of all the delegates that are needed come from California. She is for apparently single-payer health care, but she has hedged on that. She wants community college, free for everybody. Her parents are from Jamaica. She should listen to her native home country, because Jamaica, as opposed to the intervention in Venezuela, and India. So she's part Jamaican, part Indian, so she's a person of color, right? She's a dynamic person of color. In fact, Indians there's 4 million wealthy demographic subgroup in America, so there's 4 million Indians. So she's got some, she's a woman, so she'll get the woman vote, she'll get the California vote. I heard she's got a bunch of the super delegates. She's got the black vote, right? She's got the Indian vote. So if we just, on the surface, not a bad package, right? She was a prosecutor in 2004 as the San Francisco district attorney. She refused the death penalty for a man who killed an undercover cop. She declared the Justice Department is more about discrimination than equality. Then you're an asshole. You're an asshole. And a hypocrite. And I don't even want to talk to you. She uses the F word. She's black and female and beautiful. She went to Howard University, a historically black college. 60% of the Democratic voters are women, and a large number of women use their identity as a woman as their primary political identity. But David Pakman, he's a white man. He doesn't play identity games, so how convenient. I don't really either. But Kamala Harris, she's going to pay for her programs by undoing the Trump tax cuts. Elizabeth Warren wants a 2% tax on assets above $50 million, 3% on assets above $1 billion, and Donald Trump has added $2 trillion to the debt.
That is an area where we still need to make a lot of changes. Criminal justice reform is another. And this is one where uniquely right now, I think there's a moment in time where you have organizations like the ACLU partnering with the Koch brothers, very conservative Koch brothers, coming at and supporting the same pieces of legislation to end the federal marijuana prohibition, to deal with sentencing reform, to deal with prison reform, and to make it so that we're not constantly cycling these same people through our prison systems, and that we're not throwing people into already overcrowded prisons.
Now, those are some of the good things, right? So her single-payer health care, that's a definite. All the Democratic candidates have been in favor of single-payer health care, except for maybe Andrew Yang. I'm not sure where he stands on anything else but universal basic income, which he's in favor of. Kamala Harris is not. She hasn't spoken out about it. She's been silent about that. So the bad things about Kamala Harris, there's a bunch of things. I have been reading things about Kamala Harris, so I have a healthy skepticism of her. I haven't ruled her out completely. I'd like to see how these candidates evolve throughout the election process. I mean, we just started, right? We just began. The horses are let out of their gate and they're running. So we just began the 2020 presidential race. So I would like to see if she evolves and if she becomes more progressive. I highly doubt it, though.
And we know that there's a ticking time bomb, and we know that this one person knows that the details of it. And I mean, it's fantasy land. It's concocted to try to rationalize torture. And then once you open the door to torture, there is no little bit of torture. There is no only torturing in the right circumstances. The reality is, once you allow torture, you allow torture.
And the biggest reason that I feel like I'm going to just say no to Kamala Harris is because she's been anointed by the DNC. She's been anointed by the mainstream media, the establishment. Everybody's like salivating over her. So on the surface, right, she's a strong black woman. She's Jamaican and Indian, so she's got the Indians, she's got the California people, she's got the, brown and black vote, the woman vote. So she's got a lot of, things going for her.
Namaste. Assalamu alaikum.
Now, she's not that dynamic of a progressive, though. I listed a couple things there, but I haven't heard her talk about legalized weed, having a war on poverty, doing anything about Venezuela, nothing about the universal basic income. So the biggest reason a lot of people are just saying she's the next Hillary Clinton. She's Hillary 4.0. She's Miss Lock 'em up, jail 'em up. She's Miss Private Prison. She wants to get that prison slave labor up and moving. Kamala Harris is a corporatist. She was a senior advisor to the Hillary campaign. She's DNC approved, met with Hillary's donors last year. So to say that she's Hillary Clinton 2.0, I don't think that's a bad criticism. She's for the Palestinian genocide. She loves the IDF, so she's bad on Palestine and Israel. Tulsi Gabbard is against the Israeli settlements in Palestine, but Kamala Harris, she loves every single fascist she comes across. She's never met a fascist she didn't love.
The briefings that you've had over these years.
I wish that he would.
I know you're also very passionate about this FISA legislation, which the House of Representatives passed yesterday. You opposed it, right?
Yes, I did, and I supported the amendment that would not only allow Section 702 to continue, because as a veteran, I know firsthand how important it is for our intelligence personnel and community to be able to access information and communications of foreign targets to prevent terrorist attacks. However, are incidental communications of American citizens that are swept up.
Donald Trump donated $6,000 to her attorney general race in California. So that's an interesting bedfellow, right? Donald Trump supports Kamala Harris.
And you're fucking torturers. And you're violating U.S. law, the Constitution, international law, the Geneva Convention, the Nuremberg Tribunal. So what ends up happening is they end up using it. And they use it again,
Kamala Harris is the second black woman and the first South Asian American to become senator. Kamala Harris tried to jail mostly poor and black Latino parents of truant elementary schoolers. Lots of Huck Finns went to jail because of Kamala Harris.
Is that serving the best interest of the American people in the United States? U.S. military action in Syria could escalate into a conflict with other regional actors like Russia. Russia's already responded, saying that any U.S. military attack will elicit a response from them. How does going to war with Russia over Syria best serve the interests of the American people?
Kamala Harris challenged a bill that would have required her office to investigate police shootings, because clearly when the police murder somebody, it's always right. Who cares? It's just a dead body lying there. Should we investigate? Let's not even investigate it. Kamala Harris co-sponsored a resolution in objection to UNSC Resolution 2334, which condemned illegal Israeli settlements. So she fought against the bill that was trying to stop the illegal Israeli settlements. So whereas Tulsi is against the illegal Israeli settlements, Kamala Harris will co-sponsor a bill to let the Israelis build on Palestinian land. She is in favor of Palestinian genocide.
Life to God or not? Because you can't force someone to love God. You can't force someone to love anyone.
Kamala Harris tried to stop 2 incarcerated trans women from getting gender confirmation treatments prescribed by their doctors. Kamala Harris let Steve Mnuchin, who is one of her campaign donors, who is part of the Department of Treasury, who just stole $7 billion worth of Venezuela's property, including 3 oil refineries, 3 Citgo oil refineries along the Gulf of Mexico. So she let Steve Mnuchin off the hook for breaking foreclosure laws and profiting off the victims of predatory home lending. So she didn't give a damn that people are losing their houses. She's going to protect the people that were fucking over the people that were losing their houses.
On this report, there are, I think the jury is still out on the report itself. There have been comments that there are things missing or it was incomplete, and there are differing opinions on the report itself. But as I think about it myself, clearly we would not like to see any human, any person around the world being treated inhumanely. On the other side, I can also understand that any of us, if we're in a situation where our...
Kamala Harris wouldn't take a position on a proposition to reduce some low-level felonies to misdemeanors. Kamala Harris gave speeches 2 years in a row at AIPAC's policy conference, the annual gathering orchestrated by America's premier lobby organization, which ensures the U.S. government unconditionally supports Israel and passes legislation favorable to Israeli interests. Kamala Harris opposed statewide standards regulating the use of body-worn cameras by police. She just doesn't want the police to be filmed. She wants the police to get away with murder and violence and crime and drugs and prostitution and whatever the hell they want to get away with. Kamala Harris tried to block the release of nonviolent second strike offenders from overcrowded prisons.
That I would do everything in my power to keep the American people safe. So this is an area that I have conflicting feelings on.
Although, of course, there are questions about whether torture actually leads to the correct intel, right?
Yeah.
That debate carries on.
That debate carries on. There are those who are in the position of conducting these interrogations, some who have said
it does work.
It does, and others who have said it doesn't.
Kamala Harris tried to block the release of nonviolent second strike offenders from overcrowded prisons because they're cheap slave labor. They're a valuable labor pool. Kamala Harris ardently fought to uphold wrongful convictions that involved egregious misconduct by fellow prosecutors, like false testimonies, suppression, and evidence tampering. Kamala Harris co-sponsored SESTA/FOSTA, essentially criminalizing sex work and threatening sex workers' livelihoods and safety.
Listen, I like Tulsi Gabbard. I do. But that's a right-wing answer, is what that is. Anytime you're asked about torture, honestly, your answer should be, there is no such thing as a little bit of torture. There is no such thing as a ticking time bomb. I mean, what a fucking fairy tale bullshit notion. The idea, it's like, oh, we have perfect information.
Kamala didn't care about the people who were losing their homes during the 2008-2009 housing crisis. No police officers were arrested or charged, even in the cases of murder, especially unarmed murder. Her silence on Venezuela, her silence on police officers being able to commit crimes, just because you put on a badge and gun doesn't make you, superhuman. People are capable of making mistakes, and if the judicial system works, if a police officer, if there's a dead body, then ask the police officer under oath what the hell happened, and let a jury of his peers acquit him. If he did his job, if he did what was, what was right and what was good, then he'll be a hero afterwards, now wouldn't he? So the common refrain, Kamala is a cop. She's a right-wing fascist. I don't know if she's ever been a cop, but she's been a right-wing prosecutor. America is the private prison. We are the prisoners, and Kamala Harris is going to be the warden. Some women might look up to that. She plays with the big boys, but she's in favor of right-wing fascists. So, yeah, she's able to, wiggle herself into a position of power, but she cowers to right-wing fascists. She needs to oppress the people. So when it comes to Israel, when it comes to the police, when it comes to the military-industrial complex, she's never, she's not speaking out against the war. She isn't speaking out against police corruption. And there's good and bad in all groups. So to assume that all people, all police officers are good is about as dumb as, assuming all, something is bad. So Warner Media Group is her number one donor. Parent company owns CNN. So Kamala Harris's top donor is Time Warner, the Warner Media Group, which owns CNN. So the TV, the CNN, is going to go ahead and love some Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is for civil asset forfeiture, where the cops steal your property before your trial. They've stolen millions. If you actually add up the property theft by the police because of civil asset forfeiture, it's bigger than the property theft done by the general population.
There's an old saying that's very relevant to what's facing us here today, that the road to hell is often paved with good intentions. There's not one but two wars that are being waged in Syria. First is a war to defeat ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other jihadists.
Kamala Harris had been confronted by a judge. A judge said that she hid information about a drug testing police technician. So she is covering up for the police. The police are apparently allowed to break the law. She's okay with that. She's a right-wing fascist. She's never met a right-wing fascist she didn't love. What's her thoughts on Mussolini? In 2008, Oscar Grant, he was a black dude at the Fruitvale bus station or subway. He was lying on the ground. They were arguing, and for some reason, one of the cops shot him in the back while he was on the ground. Kamala Harris didn't give a shit about Oscar Grant. Kamala Harris voted to increase Trump's military budget. Kamala Harris let Jeff Sessions shut her down. Jeff Sessions just whined at some sort of Senate question where he was like, could you just let me finish, will you? And then she's like, oh, I only got a few questions. So she let Jeff Sessions kind of whine his way through that questionnaire. She kept the private prisons full. So private prisons are a business, and they only can make money if you go ahead and criminalize Americans and throw them into the private prison. Make sure you fill them beds with a bunch of heads so the private corporations can take a shit ton of money. I heard she supports the death penalty now, which is, that was one of the good things about her policies. She was supposed to be good on health care, the free community college. What about actual college? I mean, community college, it's Tulsi Gabbard is saying free community college for everybody and free college for everybody under 125,000 or so.
As a soldier, I know that the most basic requirement before taking any military action is you have to have a clear, achievable objective and a strategy to accomplish that objective. The neocons and war hawks who are calling for a U.S. military attack on Syria either don't know what the mission is, or they're pursuing a mission that is contrary to U.S. interests. The fact is that launching an attack on Syria that would weaken or cripple the Syrian military will create instability, and it will strengthen terrorist groups on the ground.
So she is sitting there saying that for universal health care is her thing, and then community college is her thing, and then she's sitting there saying that death penalty, she was against the death penalty when she began her political career. Now she's in favor of the death penalty, so she crumbled to pressure. And then she broke the state record for incarcerating black men. Kamala Harris broke the state record in California for incarcerating black males. So a black woman who hates black men, well, that's perfect for the Republicans. That's perfect for middle America. There's your girl. So that's a lot of strikes against her. That is many strikes against her. I don't know how you could ignore any of those.
By the way, everybody who we captured and put in Gitmo or put in Abu Ghraib, yeah, we know that they're guilty, they're terrorists. Again, the opposite is true, and we have the evidence, it's provable. There's a guy named Murat Kurnaz, who was a German citizen, who was swept up and held it, I think it was Abu Ghraib or Gitmo, I'm not sure which one, and we tortured him. The guy was a fucking German citizen, didn't do anything wrong. The idea that you trust the government like Dick Cheney or fucking George W. Bush or whoever the leaders may be, the generals, I don't care. The idea that you trust them to like, oh, don't worry, they'll get it. It'll be like a ticking time bomb scenario and they're doing it to save the country. Or we are completely and utterly destroying our own values and we're becoming the devil that we claim we're trying to avoid.
And then her universal health care plan, she, at a TV appearance, she did a good job. I loved her comments on universal health care. She said she was for Medicare for all, single payer. She said she was going to get rid of the private health insurance industry. So that's single payer as fuck, right? But then she backtracked it, and she said that she was only going to support moderate plans, so she's going to protect some of the private insurance now. So how long has she been for universal health care? Is she for H.R. 676, the gold standard for health, universal health care, Medicare for all? Pramila Jayapal said she wouldn't say what universal health care would turn into. So there's some discussion about the Medicare for all program the Democrats are working on right now, that it won't actually be Medicare for all. And then when Kamala Harris was asked about universal health care, so she's going to allow the private insurance group in, which I think is kind of common sense, but she backtracked immediately. So she was a strong advocate for universal health care, and then she changed her mind. So does she really know what she's talking about? But when at the TV appearance, she said that she would back it. Oh, yeah, I'll back universal health care. I'll back Medicare for all. Back which one? What specifically are you backing? What are you backing? Because that means she's not fighting for universal health care. She's not going to fight and scrape and scrap and, claw and struggle to get universal health care. But if it's there in front of her, she'll sign it. What is that about? She's just going to back it? No, I want you to fight for it and to love it, and you can't wait to get it initiated because health care is a human right. That's what I want. So even Kamala Harris's signature, universal health care plan is to be, there's a lot left to be desired. So there's my analysis on Kamala Harris.
And we violate international law. We violate human rights as we talk about how everybody else are the baddies. That one really got to me. I don't have any sympathy for even that wishy-washy, well, hypothetically, if there's a ticking time bomb scenario on torture, I'm not okay with that. Because that's never how it's functionally actually used. Whenever it's used, guys, we've seen the evidence. Did you know that the overwhelming majority of the people who were held at Guantanamo Bay, totally innocent? How do I know that? Well, the stories broke that George W. Bush and Dick Cheney reached out to warlords in Pakistan and Afghanistan and said, hey, listen, you guys got to send it. We were just attacked here on 9/11.
I'm just going to read a list of donors that have given to Kamala Harris's campaign. So you have $127,000 given to her by the Warner Media Group, who owns CNN. The University of California has given her over $100,000. Alphabet Inc. has given her about $100,000. 21st Century Fox has given her $91,000. Venable LLP has given her $91,000. Creative Artist Agency has given her $86,000. Cisco Systems has given her $57,000. Apple Incorporated has given her $55,000. Silver Lake Partners has given her $54,000. Comcast Corporation has given her $49,000. Walt Disney Corporation has given her $46,000. The state of California has given her $46,000. The state of California can donate to political campaigns. So anyways, Vote Sane PAC has given her $45,000. Vote Sane. Akin Gump et al. Has given her $45,000. Houston Hennigan LLP given her $43,000. Gibson Dunn & Crutcher has given her $43,000. Zephron Brittingham has given her $42,000. DLA Piper has given her $41,000, and Crotchet, Peter, and McCarthy has given her $41,000. So those are lawyer groups. Those are corporations all over the place, right? They're all corporations. What does the Walt Disney Company want with her? What does Comcast want with her? Some of these I don't even, Venable? Who is Venable? And how they got $91,000 to throw around? Creative Artist Agency, I feel like I should know that. 21st Century Fox, Warner Media Group, Comcast Corporation, a lot of media groups are giving her money. So you think if a media group gives her money, CNN, the Warner Media Group is giving her money, you think that they want her to win, that they will show her in a positive light? And I also heard that she was one of the advisors to the Hillary Clinton campaign, so she's an advisor to the Hillary Clinton campaign, and they all met previously, so all of Clinton's donors and Kamala Harris had met. So she's been anointed. She's been anointed by the DNC. Apparently she's got enough superdelegates to win. There's 2 rounds of voting, so if there's not a clear winner with the first round, and then the superdelegates jump in the second round of voting, so the candidate has to win a majority of all the votes in the first round of voting at the convention, at the Democratic convention. So that's a possibility for the progressives to get their one candidate if they can get it in the first round of voting. If it goes to the second round of voting, Kamala Harris has already won.